What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another off-season edition of the Dose Media Network podcast. I'm Ben Hauver, joined as I always am by Joey Carrion. And on today's show, we've got NFL season-long totals live on
Mhm.
Prizepicks, on Underdog, on the books. Joey, we're like 2.5 months away from NFL kickoff. I'm starting to feel the excitement, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 13 or 14 Sundays away now from week 1. Obviously, it starts a little bit sooner with Thursday Night Football, where your Detroit Lions are actually playing the Chiefs. I know
Six
you're
and a half
pretty
is a lock. Plus, come
I know
on.
you're pretty excited for that, but yeah, we're about 13 more Sundays away from having NFL football on, which is obviously incredible. Can't wait for that. But in the meantime, we got some player prop season longs to look at. Underdog has a ton. Price Picks has a ton. DraftKings obviously has a ton right now. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of our favorite early season long player props. If you enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this on whatever podcast feed you use, make sure you're following or subscribe to the podcast. It helps us out a ton. But I would advise go watch on YouTube. We're going to have the screens up and the props up. So go over to YouTube, Dose Media Network, and watch this video.
Yep, check it out for sure. And don't forget to join our Discord where we're going to have exclusive prize picks, underdog pick'em content all season long.
Yep.
Joey, some of these lines, a little bit egregious in my opinion.
Yeah. So obviously, it's early in the off season. Training camps haven't even started. Those will start in the middle towards the end of July. Teams did just get done with mini camps though and OTAs. And there was really no major injuries coming out of those to be expected. There's less injuries each and every year now in the off seasons with obviously the CBA and the limited practices and
Mhm.
whatnot. But I think a lot of these will change as the summer goes along. There's still some signings to be made. You know, DeAndre Hopkins is rumored to be a New England Patriot here shortly. We'll talk about that. And then obviously injuries are going to have a huge factor on the prop market and the season long market and best ball markets. But we don't have that right now. So early June, I think there are some beatable lines, which we are going to go over. And the first one for me would be Trevor Lawrence's passing yard line. So we
Mhm.
have 39.75.5 on underdog. And I think it's important also to line shop. Obviously, it's important to line shop just if you're gambling in general. You want the best line possible. But with multiple sites running season long props with underdog, Prize Picks, DraftKings, and then other sports books will follow soon. Make sure you're getting the best number. Obviously, on these pick 'em maps, you have to parlay it, so you'll have to find another prop that you like. Trevor Lawrence has the best passing yard line on underdog at 39.75.5. He's 4,100 plus on Prize Picks, so about a 200-yard discrepancy from Prize Picks to underdog alone. And really, this is just betting on a Trevor Lawrence ascension
Yeah.
into year 3, right? They added Calvin Ridley in the offseason. So you're adding a potential elite wide receiver one into this Jags offense that did really well last year with Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, and you're retaining all of those players as well. You're going into year 2 of Doug Peterson, and we saw major improvements from Trevor Lawrence in year 2. So this is really just a bet on him improving even further. The situation got better. Cam Robinson, who is their starting offensive tackle, will be suspended to start the season, which is concerning. And the Jags offensive line is still concerning. But with Trevor Lawrence, he's a generational talent. He was coming out of the draft as, you know, one of the best quarterback prospects in recent memory. And going into year 3, adding Calvin Ridley, we see it year over year when young quarterbacks get elite players added into their offense, the boom happens. So this is
Mhm.
just betting on a Trevor Lawrence ascension into year 3. And I think all of the stars are aligning for Trevor Lawrence to have a great year this year.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you on this take. I think Trevor Lawrence is poised for a top 5 quarterback type of leap. this season. Like, I think he's going to make that ascension that you talked about. I think Calvin Ridley is a big part of it. And we just, you just mentioned Calvin Ridley and his addition to the offense. His line on Underdog, disrespectful, bro, at 855.5 receiving. I may be on an island here with this take. Like, I've heard some people talk about there being little separation between Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley as the 1A, 1B in this offense. And I don't agree with that at all. I think Calvin Ridley comes in. I think he instantly commands a 20+% target share in this offense. I think he's going to be to Trevor Lawrence what Steph Diggs was to Josh Allen, what AJ Brown was to Jalen Hurts, what Jamar Chase was to Joe Burrow. We see this time and time again. We've talked about it. It is the blueprint. Trevor Lawrence is poised for this ascension. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be a big part of it. I think this line is like 200 yards too short. It's at about 900 on the book. So you're getting a 45-yard discount here on Underdog. And I personally believe that Ridley is live for like a 1,200-yard double-digit touchdown type of season. Like, he could be a true wide receiver one, and he's coming back incredibly motivated. I know that you read and I read, and we've talked in our Discord about the article that he wrote for the Players Tribune. Like, he is motivated as a person, he's motivated as a player, and all of the stars have aligned, like you said. I mean, I think this Jags offense in general is probably the most undervalued offense in these early lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with Calvin Ridley, the bear case would be he's only played 5 games in 2 years,
Yeah.
right? So kind of in a similar situation to like Deshaun Watson. If you're betting on Deshaun Watson this year, these players haven't played in a long time. So can they come out in 2023 and be productive with new teams? I do think that Calvin Ridley has the talent to be productive and to clear this 855.5 receiving yard line. I frankly do believe that it is too low. The target competition is obviously there with the players that I mentioned before, but talent wins out at the wide receiver position, and Calvin Ridley is the most talented wide receiver on the Jags, and he's going to have an immediate role come day one. And he's got a full offseason, a full training camp with the Jaguars. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Calvin Ridley for this year, but there are some concerns that, we should bring up. And obviously, for all of the players that we're talking about, there's going to be a case for why we like them and a case for why we don't like them. But in this situation with Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, as you can see on the screen, I think this is an easy pairing. Obviously, you can't put it in by itself because you can't do 2 players from the same team, but this would be a great pairing to have in a 5-leg slip on Underdog, or even a 3-leg slip if you want to go that route, because those are the best slips on Underdog, are 3-leg or 5 legs. And Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, I think that's one of the easiest pairings you can make right now on Underdog.
Absolutely. I love this pairing. And especially that's one of the big differences between Underdog and Prizepicks, where, like you said, it's one of the best that you can make on Underdog is a 3-legger, and it's essentially the worst that you can make on Prizepicks. So again, important to know, the book that you're playing on, the site that you're playing on, and make those adjustments accordingly.
All right. So for the second player prop that we're going to talk about, we're going to go over to Prizepicks for this one. And I don't really have any conviction either way. I was just looking at the Prizepicks board, just scrolling through it, seeing what players they had available, comparing it to sportsbooks odds. And this prop specifically is the best prop available on Prizepicks when comparing it to DraftKings odds.
Mhm.
And that is going to be Russell Wilson under 38.75.5 passing yards. So if we take a look at DraftKings Sportsbook right here, you can see they have Russell Wilson as a minus 140 favorite to go under 37.50.5. So we're looking at 125.5 yard discount on DraftKings, but a bump on Prizepicks. They're higher than DraftKings by 125.5 yards, which is a pretty big discrepancy. So just taking a look at DraftKings and Prizepicks, I mean, this is clear cut a value prop. If this line was available on DraftKings, this would be a minus 170 prop.
Mhm.
This would be the best prop available right now on Prizepicks, and it is the under. Now, like I said, I don't really have any conviction towards the under or over because I think both of us are kind of on a Broncos bounce back season with
Yeah.
Sean Payton, because coaching obviously does matter. And Nathaniel Hackett, I mean, was just fucking god awful
Horrible.
last year. So they're getting a top five coach in the NFL over the last 15, 20 years, and Sean Payton. They drafted a wide receiver. They're getting Tim Patrick back, who was out all of last year with an injury. And they haven't traded anybody, right? They didn't trade Cortland Sutton. They didn't trade Jerry Judy. And Javonte Williams is hurt. So their starting running back is hurt. They added playmakers in the draft at the wide receiver position, and all of their wide receivers are going to be healthy. I think he could go over, but if we're just playing as plus EV as possible, which I think is important, Russell Wilson under is the best play on the board right now on Prize Picks.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I mean, it's just a value play, right? Like, I think
Mhm.
that the Broncos could definitely bounce back, but at the same time, sometimes you just have to chase the value, and I would also say, right, when we're correlating on Prize Picks, if we're gonna be turning this into a six-legger, for example, you would be like you said with Trevor and Calvin Ridley, you want those to be connected. Russell Wilson and the Broncos receivers can also be correlated on unders as well. You're getting a 50-yard discount on Cortland Sutton. His line on Prize Picks is 50 yards higher than it is on books. So 750 on Prize Picks, 700 on DraftKings. So I think that that would be a strong correlated under. Judy are getting about 25 yards discounted as well on the under. So those would be the type of plays that I'm trying to make and just chasing the value, to be honest.